how dating apps are changing our capacity to love. And they're not just changing how we meet people, they're also changing who we become in the process. Starting out, I want to acknowledge that dating apps have enabled a lot of people to meet who I know for certain would never have met otherwise. I have friends, people I've worked with, they met their partner. They ended up getting together, cohabitating, getting married, having children. So it provided them the opportunity to meet someone and form a really amazing bond. So they can work sometimes. And if dating apps really lived up to what they claim to be, I would be all for them. I'm open, totally supportive of anything that helps to bring people together. But there are other concerns. Looking back over the years, those of us who have been on the planet long enough, I remember all too well how difficult it could be to meet someone. Especially in places like New York City, Boston, people can be really guarded sometimes. Maybe you meet people and have conversations, but there is this stupid unspoken rule like, oh, well, it's not going to go any further if you meet someone spontaneously. Consequently, a lot of people just ended up very lonely. And with women, that guardedness was even more so, and largely for good reason, because there were a certain percentage of badly behaving men and so there is that need to consider their own safety, their own well-being, and for that reason, just being more cautious. But when dating apps showed up on the scene, then that made it possible for a lot of people to begin to have conversations and to connect. The thing too is, over time, things have changed. Early on, I think the apps, the way they were configured, a lot of people were meeting. But that doesn't necessarily work in favor of the creators of these apps, because it doesn't really align with their business model so well. Every time two people pair off, what happens is these individuals leave the app, and that's not good for their business, their revenue. Also, the fact that you have all this monetization, whether boosts or they boost your profile and other features so that you're more likely to be seen or get more attention. And the way the apps are engineered to keep you on the app, so you spend more time scrolling. A lot of people are questioning whether the intention is more to generate revenue out of folks who are on the apps, as opposed to really bringing people together to help them find love and to pair up. One of the biggest concerns about our reliance or dependence on these apps is that we're so much less likely to engage one another. In times past, unless you were fortunate enough to be introduced by a friend or family member, maybe you were part of a community, or if you were involved in the arts, you had more opportunity to meet, to interact with a lot of people. Other than that, about the only way to really meet or connect with someone, if you were to see someone you wanted to connect with, your only option basically was to walk up and start a conversation. And that could be difficult at times, awkward, and there was always the potential the person's going to ignore you or respond negatively, reject you. And sometimes it could really hurt when that happened. But by being able to walk up and to engage with a person, there are many advantages. One, it helped us to develop our interpersonal skills. We learned how to interact with people. We learned to tune into our senses, to evaluate this person that we were engaging with, to get a better sense of, is this someone that I possibly resonate with on any level. Is this a decent human being that has qualities that would make for a good potential partner? We could observe their body language, their facial expressions. We can hear the tone of their voice and their inflection. So there is so much valuable information. So what concerns me with our reliance on these apps is that it is in many ways stunting our growth, our personal development, the development of crucial interpersonal skills, being able to access and tune into our intuition, to evaluate people. These are all crucial life skills that we need. And it's creating so much of a barrier, a buffer between ourselves and other people. We're depending on this digital interface as opposed to developing these crucial people or crucial interacting with other people's skills that I feel are essential for our development as human beings. When we become so dependent on these apps, there are a number of things that concern me. Is that there's a commodification that takes place. We begin to objectify other people in a way similar to where we were maybe shopping on some online retailer and we're just evaluating. Here we have these highly curated profiles and a few choice images, which they don't necessarily provide the most accurate representation of the individual whose profile caught our attention. Those photos could be highly altered. They could be years old. And we tend to default more to superficial qualities or characteristics like their height and hair color and other physical features, their occupation, and political views can be important, but sometimes we can exclude a person just because they don't immediately reflect our own political views or say something to indicate that they share our views, and so we dismiss people. And then we think that just because a person has specific qualities that they meet the checklist, that they're going to be a good match. And the danger too is that we can easily overlook other qualities or attributes. We're just not going to see them. They're not readily available for us to sense or feel or observe. So we end up bypassing someone who could be an extraordinarily good partner for us. So it tends to make us more superficial. It's preventing us from tuning into and relying upon our inner senses to really get a deep felt sense of the individual and even to evaluate intellectually who we're dealing with. It is preventing us, again, from relying upon our own internal senses that we need to evaluate individuals. So in many ways, it is teaching us to not be present. The fact that many of us are dissociated. Actually, I think all of us are to some degree. We don't meet the criteria for someone with a dissociative disorder, yet to varying degrees, we're not all that present in our bodies. We're not near as present in our interactions with other people. We're not as embodied. We're not as present in the world in which we live. And so the more that we rely upon apps, the more that we're hiding behind the screens of our computers and smartphones, we're interacting through this digital interface. It's teaching, it's conditioning us more and more to be less present, less engaged. And so I feel it's so crucial that we need to strive to become more and more embodied. When I was in my 30s, I made more of an effort if I saw someone that I felt drawn to approach that individual, to engage them. And especially being in New York City, a place where people can be so guarded, I was engaging, interacting with thousands of women that I encountered. Often I would meet someone, get into these really animated conversations, sometimes feel like I'd met a new friend. And I went in with this openness. I was open to however the relationship wanted to take shape, even if it didn't go any further than platonic friendship. But in New York, that rarely happened. It did so when I traveled to other parts of the country, Ohio and Kansas City, being in New Mexico, being in other parts of the world, when I was spending time in China, India, and Sri Lanka, developing these social skills by engaging with so many women gave me an advantage just by being present, open, and engaging with the people I encountered. I've had some relationships developed organically. I was developing these, again, crucial skills that made it easier for me, that improved the quality of my relationships. I was more embodied and more present. I became more empathetic and more understanding, and I learned so much more about myself and deeper understanding of women and people in general. When we rely on dating apps, as I said before, there's this tendency to commodify people, to turn them into commodities that we could use, and often we dispose of them. I think a lot of it is because of the emptiness that many of us experience, that we feel we have to keep buying and acquiring, but then our attention wanders somewhere else. And so there's a way in which we accumulate people, or sample people, taste an individual. And yet there's always this sense that there's someone else that we could be hooking up with on the app, someone that might be cuter or more handsome, or that turns us on a bit more, or that matches our criteria. There's that desire for novelty. We kind of lose that capacity to really be present with someone and go the slow route of getting to know them, getting a sense of who they are, and developing that relational bond, and actually growing into a lasting, sustainable connection. Our use of apps tend to reinforce that unfortunate tendency. When we spend so much time interacting through apps and messaging back and forth, it involves far fewer of our senses. It leaves us interacting more from a dissociated state. We're more in our heads. And so there's less empathy, less concern, less depth of feeling. We're not forming this bond in the way we would if a person were directly in front of us, and we were forming that empathetic kind of attachment that would enable us to get a sense that, wow, I really care about this person and their well-being. And so there's an unfortunate consequence of that, is people are much more likely to ghost, disappear, completely stop responding. And that's even after you meet them in person, after you've messaged them for a while. It's conditioning in that tendency to diminish or devalue the people with whom you interact. Whereas when you're meeting, when you're getting to know people organically, and you're going through that gradual process of becoming familiar with them, and you're having that emotional response to your interaction, you're developing a feeling for them, you're developing an attachment. And so when you're just interacting through screens, it tends to discourage a lot of these natural processes that occur through meeting face to face and getting to know someone in a natural, organic fashion. I'm not saying to never use dating apps, to completely delete them, get rid of them forever. You can use them, and if it helps you to meet someone, that's wonderful. But keep in mind that there, as I said before, are a lot of crucial developmental processes that occur when we're actually engaging with people in real time. And understand that the more time that you spend on your devices, scrolling or swiping, as opposed to meeting and engaging with people in real life, even if you've developed a lot of these important interactive or relational qualities, you stand the risk of those qualities or capabilities atrophying. You need to exercise. You can't just go to a gym and work out for some period of time and get into really good shape, and it's like, okay, I'm here, I got it, so now I'm done, I don't have to do this anymore. Even if you've spent a lot of time and you've engaged with people and you've developed these social skills, and that was one of the advantages for me of engaging with, interacting with so many women. I developed a lot of really essential social or interactive skills. It helped me to develop my intuition, to develop this ability to get a deeper felt sense of the people I encounter or interact with, to be able to recognize certain, especially when there were red flags, there were danger signals. If somebody had exhibited signs of cluster B personality disorders, borderline narcissism, they struggled with a dependency upon alcohol or other recreational drugs, tendencies to be dishonest, to not be upfront, if they lacked certain essential qualities. Also, it helped me to recognize when there was a greater resonance between myself and another individual, even if that person didn't meet a lot of the qualities that I might have put on some checklist. You know, I could be meeting someone from another culture, from a country in a different part of the world, from a different segment of society. And even though this person could be vastly different, as I was interacting with them, I was like, wow, there's some things I really like about this person. And so there's so much growth that comes through direct engagement, through interacting with people face to face, to be able to meet people in all kinds of settings. That could be if you're in a supermarket, you're shopping, if you're on public transportation in New York City, you know, a lot of people rely on the subway. If you're traveling a great distance, could be on Amtrak, if you're riding by train, if you're flying across country, if you're flying to another part of the world. You never know, you could be in the airport, you could end up sitting next to someone on the plane. And so these are always opportunities to meet and engage, even if it doesn't go anywhere, even if you just have a pleasant conversation. These are still experiences in which you're learning and you're growing from these interactions with other people. They have ways of nourishing us. They feed us in ways. They touch us. They help us to grow. They help to feed those hungry parts of us, to comfort the parts of us that feel lonely, and they make it possible for us to not feel so lonely, because especially when we do bond, because we're deriving that warmth, that emotional warmth through the interaction, even more so when as the bonds grow and we have someone that truly cares for us. In closing, I want to say this is just what comes to mind of this extensive article I've written, How Dating Apps Are Changing Our Capacity to Love. I'd encourage you to click on the link, which you'll find below the article, and you could listen to the article, which I read directly from, if you're walking or driving or relaxing with your eyes closed or whatever. If you prefer, you can read the article because there's a lot of additional insight. These articles are so in-depth and it's so much to cover. So encourage you to read the article or listen to it as well, either way, because there's so much more that I cover that you'll benefit from.